The Foundational Lie. My name is Julian Blackwood, and for 42 years I lived inside a gilded cage of my own inheritance. The Blackwood name wasn't just a surname, it was a fortress of old money, New York real estate, and a legacy of cold, hard power that spanned generations. My father, Arthur Blackwood, was the architect of it all, a titan whose approval was as scarce and meticulously awarded as a knighthood from the Queen. He was a man of calculated gestures, whose love felt less like an emotion and more like a transaction, a reward for meeting impossible standards. My mother, Eleanor, was the beautiful, melancholic centerpiece of his empire. To the outside world, she was the elegant, dutiful wife. But I saw the subtle cracks in her porcelain facade, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes during his blistering critiques, the slow dimming of her spirit under the weight of his oppressive presence. I learned to navigate this emotional minefield by becoming a reflection of him. I built my own kingdom within his, a venture capital firm that I nurtured from a bold idea into a billion-dollar behemoth. My penthouse was a monument to my success, all sharp angles, floor-to-ceiling glass, and curated modern art. It was breathtaking, and it was empty. It echoed with a silence that no amount of money could fill. I wore my ambition like armor, believing the hollowness inside was the necessary cost of greatness, the price one paid for a seat at the table of giants. The first fissure in my perfectly constructed world appeared with my mother's passing. It was a long, quiet surrender to an illness that seemed almost a physical manifestation of her lifelong sorrow. In the wake of her death, a profound silence descended upon the Blackwood mansion. Arthur retreated into his study, his grief seeming more like an offense to his orderly world than a genuine heartbreak. It fell to me to handle her personal effects, a task I both dreaded and craved. It was in her private sitting room, a sanctuary filled with soft light and the faint, lingering scent of her jasmine perfume, that I found it. Tucked away beneath the velvet lining of an heirloom jewelry box, a place Arthur would never deign to look, was a bundle of letters tied with a simple faded ribbon. The paper was thin, soft at the edges from countless rereadings. The handwriting was strong, yet gentle. The first one began, "My dearest Eleanor," and was signed, "Forever yours, Samuel." The date stabbed at my heart. It was from 2 months before my birth. The world didn't just tilt, it shattered. The man whose name I bore, whose legacy I carried, whose coldness I had spent a lifetime trying to melt, was not my father. The revelation was a cataclysm. I felt a terrifying, guilty wave of relief, as if a lifelong, unexplained burden had been lifted, only to be replaced by the crushing weight of a fundamental lie. Who was Samuel? The name was a ghost, a whisper from a life I never knew. Driven by a desperate, primal need for truth, I used the very resources Arthur had given me, the private investigators, the network of influence, to unravel the mystery. The truth was both simple and devastatingly complex. Samuel Reed. He had been our landscaper, the quiet, unassuming man with work-roughened hands and a quiet smile who had tended my mother's beloved rose gardens with a kind of reverence. He lived in a modest, weathered, clapboard house in a part of town the Blackwood map had simply ignored. I found him there, in his own small, vibrant garden, a world away from the manicured, impersonal grounds of the estate. He was older, his hair fully grey, his movements slower, but his eyes were the same. They held a deep, unwavering kindness. He looked up as I approached, and before I could utter a word, his eyes filled with tears. He didn't see Julian Blackwood, the venture capitalist. He saw his son. "Julian," he whispered, my name a prayer on his lips. He invited me in, and over tea in his humble kitchen, he told me the story my mother had taken to her grave. It was a tale not of sordid affair, but of a profound and desperate love. My mother, trapped in a marriage that was a beautiful prison, found solace in Samuel's quiet strength and genuine heart. Their love was a secret world of stolen moments in the rose garden, of whispered dreams, of a connection that was as natural and essential as air. When she discovered she was pregnant, it was not a scandal, but a miracle. But Arthur, in a towering rage of wounded pride and possessive fury, had threatened to destroy Samuel. He promised lawsuits, ruin, and most cruelly to disown my mother and her child, leaving us utterly destitute and shamed. To protect me, to give me the Blackwood name and all the privilege and safety it promised, my mother made the ultimate sacrifice. She sent Samuel away. He accepted his exile, not for his sake, but for ours. He stayed close, taking landscaping jobs just to remain on the periphery of my life, watching his son grow up from a heartbreaking distance, tending to those roses as a sacred duty to the woman he loved and the son he could never claim. Armed with this soul-shattering truth, I confronted Arthur in his cold, imposing study. The air was thick with the smell of old leather and expensive cigar smoke. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I simply laid my mother's letters on his vast, empty desk. He picked them up, his hands unnervingly steady, and read. His face, a mask of granite for decades, did not crumble, but something in his eyes did. It was the flicker of a long-held secret, finally being exposed to the light. He was a gardener, he finally said, his voice like gravel, beneath her, beneath us. He admitted he had always harbored doubts, but his pride wouldn't allow him to acknowledge them. Raising me was not an act of love, but of possession. I was a Blackwood asset, a continuation of the name, even if the bloodline was a fraud. The foundation of my entire life was not granite, but sand. Walking away was the most liberating and terrifying thing I have ever done. I left the penthouse, resigned from the firm, and let the vast Blackwood fortune slip through my fingers. It felt not like a loss, but like shedding a heavy, ill-fitting skin. Now I am rebuilding from the ground up. I spend my days with Samuel, my father. I am learning the patient art of gardening, the feel of rich soil under my fingernails, the quiet satisfaction of nurturing a seedling into bloom. The hollow echo in my chest is gone, replaced by a profound and solid peace. I inherited nothing from Arthur Blackwood but a masterclass in emotional emptiness. But from Samuel, I have inherited everything. My mother's capacity for deep love, my own true identity, and the unshakable knowledge that our true worth is not measured by the fortunes we inherit, but by the love we build and the truth we have the courage to live. I am no longer Julian Blackwood, the heir to a lie. I am Julian Reed, the son, and for the very first time I am finally completely home.